Have you ever heard of a civilization that built cities more advanced than many in the world today, over 4,000 years ago? A civilization with grid-like streets, sophisticated plumbing, and a population of millions, yet we can't read their writing and don't even know their real name. Today, we are journeying back in time to uncover the secrets of the incredible Indus Valley civilization. Also known as the Harappan civilization, this was one of the three earliest cradles of civilization in the Old World, alongside Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Flourishing in the basins of the Indus River, what is now Pakistan and northwest India, its story begins around 3300 BCE. This early phase saw the growth of small villages into larger towns. People were mastering agriculture, cultivating wheat, barley, and cotton, and domesticating animals. They developed unique pottery styles and the first hints of the organized urban life that was to come. Then, around 2600 BCE, something extraordinary happened. The civilization entered its mature Harappan phase, and massive, meticulously planned cities emerged from the landscape. We are talking about urban centers like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, two of the largest and most famous sites. What's mind-blowing about these cities is their level of organization. They weren't chaotic jumbles of buildings. They were laid out on a grid system, with main streets running north-south and east-west. Let's take a closer look at Mohenjo-daro. The city was divided into two main parts: the citadel, a raised area with important public buildings, and the lower town, where most people lived. The citadel likely housed administrative centers, religious buildings, and structures like the famous Great Bath, a large, waterproof tank that might have been used for ritual purification. Imagine a public pool complex, but built thousands of years ago. It shows an incredible command of engineering and water management. Down in the lower town, the houses were remarkably standardized. Most were built with uniform, kiln-fired bricks, a major technological advancement that made their structures durable against floods and time. Many homes had their own private wells and, get this, their own bathrooms connected to a citywide drainage system. Covered drains ran along the streets, carrying wastewater away from the houses. This level of sanitation was unheard of in most of the ancient world and wouldn't be seen again on such a scale for thousands of years. It tells us they were deeply concerned with hygiene and public health. So who were these people? While we can't read their script, found on thousands of small stone seals, archaeology gives us clues. It appears to have been a surprisingly peaceful and egalitarian society. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, we haven't found grand palaces for kings or monumental temples for gods. There's a distinct lack of depictions of warfare or rulers. Instead, the focus seems to be on trade and craftsmanship. Their economy was bustling. The Indus people were skilled artisans. They produced beautiful pottery, intricate beadwork from semi-precious stones like carnelian, and stunning bronze and terracotta figurines. One of the most famous artifacts is a small bronze statue of a dancing girl, which captures a sense of movement and confidence. Another is the priest-king statue, a serene figure with a trimmed beard and patterned robe. These objects give us a small window into their culture and artistry. Standardized weights and measures have been found across hundreds of sites, spanning vast distances. This uniformity suggests a highly integrated economic system, facilitating trade both within the civilization and beyond. And they did trade far and wide. Harappan seals and beads have been discovered in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, indicating a thriving international trade network. They likely exported cotton textiles, timber, and other luxury goods in exchange for metals and raw materials. They were true pioneers of globalization. Society seems to have been well organized, but perhaps not by an all-powerful king. It's possible that a council of merchants, priests, or elders governed the cities. The uniformity of the cities, bricks, and weights suggests a strong central authority, but one that didn't glorify itself with giant statues or opulent tombs. Their focus was practical, communal, and efficient. Now for the great mystery. What happened to them? Around 1900 BCE, this vibrant civilization began to decline. The great cities were gradually abandoned, the writing system disappeared, and the standardized weights and measures fell out of use. For a long time, the leading theory was a massive invasion, perhaps by Aryan tribes. However, there's very little archaeological evidence of widespread warfare or destruction. Today, most scholars believe the decline was caused by a combination of factors, with climate change being a major culprit. The monsoon patterns may have shifted, disrupting the delicate agricultural system that supported the large urban populations. The Indus River system itself might have changed course, drying up some areas and flooding others. This environmental stress could have led to a breakdown of the economy and social structure. People likely migrated away from the cities in smaller groups, returning to a more rural way of life. The Indus Valley civilization didn't just vanish, it transformed. Its legacy lived on, influencing later cultures in the Indian subcontinent. Aspects of their religion, such as the worship of a mother goddess or figures that resemble early forms of the Hindu god Shiva, may have been absorbed into later traditions. Their innovations in agriculture, trade, and urban planning laid a foundation for the future development of the region. The story of the Indus Valley is a powerful reminder that even the most advanced societies are fragile. It's a tale of incredible achievement and mysterious decline, a puzzle with many missing pieces. Every new excavation brings us closer to understanding the lives of these forgotten people who built a world of order and ingenuity on the banks of the Indus River. We may never know their name or hear their stories in their own words, but their silent cities of brick speak volumes about their genius. The Indus Valley civilization developed in a region defined by a complex and varied geography that played a central role in its emergence, growth, and eventual decline. This area was primarily centered on the Indus River and its tributaries, which formed an extensive river system flowing from the Himalayan mountains to the Arabian Sea. The fertile plains created by these rivers supported agricultural communities that gradually evolved into urban centers. The geographical setting, marked by floodplains, seasonal rivers, and access to the sea, shaped the economic, social, and cultural development of the civilization. The Indus River, also known as the Sindhu, originates in the Tibetan Plateau near Lake Mansarovar and flows through the regions of present-day Ladakh, Gilgit-Baltistan, and Punjab before entering the plains of Pakistan. It continues its journey southwest, eventually emptying into the Arabian Sea near the coast of modern Karachi. Along its course, the river is joined by numerous tributaries, including the Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej rivers, which together created a fertile and well-watered region conducive to farming. The alluvial plains of the Indus River were formed by sediments deposited over millennia by annual floods. These floodwaters brought nutrient-rich silt that replenished the soil, allowing for productive agriculture. The seasonal flooding cycles created a natural irrigation system, enabling the cultivation of crops such as wheat, barley, peas, and lentils. These conditions supported dense populations and the development of settled communities, eventually leading to the rise of cities. Beyond the river valleys, the region's landscape includes several distinct zones. To the north, the Himalayan and Karakoram mountain ranges provided natural boundaries and sources of glacial meltwater. These mountains influenced local climates and river flows. To the west, the arid Makran coastal region and the Kirthar Hills created a geographical barrier separating the Indus settlements from the Iranian plateau. To the south and southwest, the Arabian Sea offered access to maritime routes and facilitated trade with distant regions. The presence of the Arabian Sea was an important geographical factor for the Indus Valley civilization. Coastal settlements such as Lothal, located in present-day Gujarat, included port facilities and dockyards that suggest active engagement in maritime trade. The civilization's access to the sea enabled exchanges with regions beyond South Asia, including Mesopotamia and the Persian Gulf. Seasonal monsoon rains contributed to the environmental dynamics of the region. The summer monsoon brought heavy rainfall primarily to the eastern part of the civilization's territory, supporting agriculture but also contributing to periodic flooding. The timing and intensity of monsoon rains were critical for crop cycles and water supply. However, variations in monsoon patterns over time may have affected agricultural productivity and settlement stability. The river systems in the Indus region were not static. Over centuries, some rivers changed their courses, dried up, or shifted flow paths. Notably, the Gagahakra river system, believed by some scholars to be the ancient Sarasvati River mentioned in later texts, is thought to have once supported several Indus settlements. Geological and satellite data indicate that this river gradually diminished or changed course, which likely impacted the communities that depended on it. These environmental changes, including river shifts and variations in rainfall, are considered significant factors in the decline of the Indus Valley civilization's urban centers. Reduced water availability would have affected agriculture, trade, and daily life. As water sources became less reliable, populations may have dispersed or migrated to areas with better resources. The diverse geography of the Indus region also influenced settlement patterns. Large urban centers such as Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were situated on elevated river terraces or flood-protected areas. This placement reduced the risk of flooding and allowed for the development of planned cities with infrastructure such as drainage systems and public baths. Smaller settlements and rural villages were distributed throughout the floodplains and foothills, connected to urban centers through trade and social networks. Archaeological surveys reveal hundreds of such sites, indicating a complex landscape of habitation and land use. The Indus Valley civilization's geographical setting offered several advantages that supported its development. Fertile soils, abundant water supply, and access to trade routes enabled agricultural surplus and economic diversification. The riverine environment also provided fish and other aquatic resources that supplemented diets. At the same time, the environment presented challenges. Seasonal flooding required the construction of protective measures, such as raised platforms and embankments. The management of water resources demanded communal effort and technological solutions, including wells, reservoirs, and drainage networks. The relationship between the Indus people and their environment reflects a balance of adaptation and exploitation. They harnessed natural resources to sustain large populations and complex urban life while responding to environmental fluctuations. Trade routes extended through land and sea, linking the Indus region with neighboring areas. Overland routes connected the Indus settlements with Central Asia, the Iranian Plateau, and the Mesopotamian Valley. Maritime routes enabled exchanges of goods and cultural contacts with regions along the Arabian Sea and beyond. Evidence from archaeological finds such as imported materials, trade goods, and artifacts demonstrates the extent of these connections. Items like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, carnelian from the Indus region, and copper from Oman point to long-distance trade networks. The geographical setting also influenced cultural interactions. The Indus Civilization's location at the crossroads of South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East facilitated exchanges of ideas, technologies, and goods. This contributed to the complexity and diversity of material culture observed in the archaeological record. The environmental and geographic factors of the Indus region are essential to understanding the civilization's trajectory. Its rise depended on fertile floodplains and access to resources, while its decline correlates with changing environmental conditions. In summary, the Indus Valley civilization developed within a complex geographic and environmental context shaped by river systems, mountains, seas, and climate. This setting provided both opportunities and constraints that influenced urban development, economy, and social organization. The interaction between the civilization and its environment played a central role throughout its history. The Indus Valley civilization is notable for its pioneering approach to urban planning and architecture, which reflects a high degree of social organization and technical expertise. Excavations at major sites such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa reveal cities constructed with careful attention to layout, sanitation, and building uniformity. These features distinguish the civilization as one of the earliest in the world to develop complex urban centers that were not only large but also well-ordered and hygienic. Mohenjo-daro, located in present-day Sindh province of Pakistan, is one of the most extensively studied urban sites. Covering roughly 250 hectares, it was among the largest cities of its time, with a population estimated between 30,000 and 40,000 during its peak occupation around 2600 to 1900 year BCE. The city was divided into two main parts, the citadel and the lower town. The citadel was a raised platform, approximately 12 meters above the surrounding area, serving as the location for large public buildings. The lower town was spread out below, composed of residential neighborhoods, workshops, and commercial areas. The urban design of Mohenjo-daro adhered to a grid plan. Streets ran in straight lines intersecting at right angles, forming blocks that organized the city spatially. This grid system facilitated orderly development and efficient movement. Streets were wide enough to allow for pedestrian and car traffic, with the main roads measuring up to 9 meters in width. Secondary lanes between residential areas were narrower but generally straight and well-defined. An advanced drainage system underpinned the city's sanitation. Beneath the streets ran covered brick-lined channels designed to carry wastewater and storm runoff away from inhabited areas. Homes connected to these drains via vertical pipes, ensuring waste was directed away from living spaces. Many houses included private bathrooms and toilets linked to this network. The sophistication of this drainage system is notable, as it predates similar features found in contemporary civilizations such as Mesopotamia and Egypt. Standardization extended to the construction materials used throughout Mohenjo-daro. The baked bricks employed in buildings were remarkably uniform, typically measuring about 7 by 14 by 28 centimeters. This consistency suggests that brick production was regulated, possibly by municipal authorities, to maintain quality and compatibility in construction. Bricks were laid in a uniform pattern and bonded with mud mortar, providing durable and weather-resistant walls. Residential structures varied in size, reflecting different household needs or social statuses, though no evidence of palatial or elite residences has been found. Most houses were 1 or 2 stories tall and built around central courtyards that allowed for ventilation, light, and private outdoor space. The courtyard layout also facilitated domestic activities such as cooking, washing, and craft production. Many homes featured wells providing access to clean water within the residence, an uncommon feature in ancient urban centers. One of Mohenjo-daro's most significant public structures is the Great Bath, measuring approximately 12 meters in length, 7 meters in width, and 2.4 meters in depth. The bath was constructed with finely fitted bricks sealed with bitumen, making it watertight. Steps on all sides allowed entry into the pool, and adjacent rooms may have served as changing areas or places for ritual preparation. The Great Bath is interpreted as a communal facility possibly used for ritual bathing or purification practices. Its presence points to the importance of water in public and possibly religious life. Public buildings beyond the Great Bath include granaries, assembly halls, and large platforms. Granaries were constructed with thick walls and ventilation shafts, designed to store grain securely and protect it from pests and moisture. The presence of granaries indicates centralized control of food resources and an ability to sustain large urban populations. The absence of temples, palaces, or monumental statues is a distinctive feature of the Indus urban landscape. Unlike Mesopotamian or Egyptian cities, no clearly identifiable religious or royal structures have been uncovered. This absence suggests a social organization that either lacked centralized monarchy or expressed authority and ritual differently than contemporary civilizations. Harappa, located in Punjab province of Pakistan, shares many architectural and urban planning features with Mohenjo-daro. It also exhibits a citadel area and a lower town, grid-patterned streets, and advanced drainage systems. The site covers approximately 150 hectares and was similarly organized into residential neighborhoods, craft production areas, and public spaces. At Harappa, excavations have revealed workshops for bead making, pottery, and metallurgy, indicating the integration of industrial activities within the urban fabric. The standardization of bricks and consistent street layouts reinforce the idea of a coordinated approach to urban development across Indus settlements. Water management systems were central to the functionality of these cities. Wells dug within houses provided access to groundwater, while reservoirs and cisterns stored rainwater. Streets were designed with slight slopes to channel rainwater into drainage systems, reducing the risk of flooding. Public bathing platforms and water tanks supplemented household water facilities, reflecting a sophisticated approach to managing water supply and sanitation in densely populated areas. The planning of residential areas took into account privacy and security. Houses often had high walls and few windows facing the streets, with interior courtyards providing light and ventilation. Narrow lanes and enclosed homes created secure neighborhoods, though the lack of city walls or fortifications at many sites suggests the civilization did not face significant military threats or relied on other forms of defense. Urban planning extended to the integration of craft and trade activities within cities. Workshops producing beads, pottery, and metal objects were located near residential areas, facilitating the supply of goods and materials. These workshops used locally available resources as well as materials obtained through long-distance trade. Roads connecting Indus cities to surrounding rural settlements enabled the transport of agricultural products and manufactured goods. The construction of roads and bridges shows investment in infrastructure to support commerce and communication. The architectural uniformity and urban layout consistency across Indus cities point to the existence of governance or regulatory mechanisms. The enforcement of standardized brick sizes and street design suggests centralized planning or shared community agreements. However, the exact nature of political authority remains unknown due to the absence of deciphered written records. The design of cities also demonstrates attention to environmental factors. The elevated citadel areas provided protection against seasonal floods, while drainage systems and water storage managed both floodwaters and water scarcity. These adaptations indicate an understanding of local climate and hydrological conditions. Public spaces appear to have been limited but purposeful. The Great Bath and assembly areas provided communal functions, possibly for ritual, administrative, or social gatherings. The lack of large open plazas contrasts with other ancient urban centers but reflects different cultural or social priorities. In terms of construction technology, the Indus people employed baked bricks, wooden beams, and mud mortar. Foundations were typically laid on compacted earth or gravel. Roofs may have been flat and supported by timber frameworks. The quality and durability of construction are evident from the survival of bricks and structural remains. Drainage and sanitation infrastructure included soak pits, drains, and cesspits. Wastewater from homes flowed into covered street drains, which were regularly maintained. Some houses had private latrines connected to the drainage network, representing an advanced public health practice. The urban design also reflects considerations for airflow and climate control. The orientation of streets and buildings facilitated natural ventilation, while courtyards and open spaces reduced indoor heat. This shows an awareness of environmental comfort and adaptation to the regional climate. The integration of economic activities into urban spaces further characterizes Indus cities. Markets or bazaars, though not directly excavated as distinct areas, are inferred from the distribution of workshops and storage facilities. Trade goods such as beads, metals, and pottery were produced and likely exchanged within these urban economies. While no royal palaces or temples have been found, numerous small statues and seals bearing images of animals, humans, and symbols suggest symbolic or religious practices integrated into daily life. The role of religion or ritual in urban spaces remains a subject of study. The scale and sophistication of Indus urban planning place it among the earliest examples of planned cities globally. The coordination required to build and maintain such infrastructure indicates social organization capable of mobilizing labor and resources. In summary, the urban centers of the Indus Valley civilization reveal a high degree of planning, standardization, and technological skill. The grid layouts, advanced drainage and sanitation, standardized bricks, and integrated craft production demonstrate an organized and efficient urban society. While the absence of monumental religious or royal architecture distinguishes it from other ancient civilizations, the focus on infrastructure and daily life reflects a unique approach to urbanism. These features contribute to understanding the Indus civilization as a complex and innovative society in the ancient world. The economic foundation of the Indus Valley civilization was closely tied to its agricultural productivity, artisanal craftwork, and trade networks. This economy supported some of the earliest large urban centers, whose complexity was reflected in the diverse activities undertaken by its inhabitants. The combination of fertile land, technological skill, and strategic geographic positioning facilitated economic growth and exchange both within the civilization and with distant regions. Agriculture was the primary economic activity sustaining the population of the Indus Valley. The fertile alluvial plains, enriched by seasonal floods of the Indus River and its tributaries, provided nutrient-rich soil suitable for crop cultivation. The principal crops grown included wheat and barley, staples that formed the basis of the diet. Archaeobotanical evidence also indicates the cultivation of peas, sesame, and millet. Of particular note is the early cultivation of cotton, making the Indus civilization one of the first societies to develop textile production from this plant. The presence of cotton seeds at archaeological sites highlights its significance for local use and possibly for trade. The agricultural calendar was tied closely to the monsoon rains and river flooding patterns. Planting typically occurred after the retreat of the floodwaters, when the soil was moist and fertile. Harvesting took place before the onset of the dry season. This cycle required knowledge of seasonal variations and careful timing to maximize yields. Irrigation methods may have been employed, though direct evidence remains limited. Wells and reservoirs found at some sites suggest measures to manage water supply during drier periods. In addition to crop cultivation, animal husbandry complemented the agricultural economy. Archaeological remains indicate the domestication of cattle, water buffalo, sheep, goats, and pigs. These animals provided meat, milk, hides, and labor. The combined use of crops and livestock contributed to a stable subsistence base capable of supporting urban populations. Craft production was another key element of the Indus economy. The civilization is known for its skilled artisans who produced a variety of goods, including pottery, beadwork, metal tools, and ornaments. Pottery was often wheel-made and carefully finished, with standardized shapes and decorations. Bead production was particularly advanced, with materials such as carnelian, agate, and jasper fashioned into intricate shapes. These beads served both utilitarian and decorative purposes, and many were produced for trade. Metalworking involved the use of copper, bronze, gold, and occasionally silver. Tools, weapons, and decorative items were crafted using techniques such as casting, hammering, and engraving. The presence of standardized metal objects suggests organized production, possibly involving specialist craftsmen. The organization of craft production was integrated within urban settlements. Workshops for beadmaking, pottery, and metallurgy have been excavated in residential neighborhoods, indicating that production was not isolated but part of everyday life. Raw materials were sourced locally or imported from distant regions, as evidenced by the presence of materials like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and marine shells from coastal areas. Trade networks were extensive, linking the Indus Civilization to neighboring regions and beyond. Overland routes connected the Indus Valley to Central Asia, the Iranian Plateau, and Mesopotamia. Maritime trade utilized the Arabian Sea and its coastal settlements, facilitating exchanges with the Persian Gulf and possibly East Africa. Archaeological findings support the existence of active trade relations. Indus seals and weights have been discovered in Mesopotamian cities such as Ur, Lagash, and Kish. These seals, typically carved from steatite, bear distinctive animal motifs and inscriptions in the yet undeciphered Indus script. Their presence suggests the exchange of goods and the use of seals as markers of identity, authenticity in commercial transactions. Standardized weights and measures were another indication of the sophistication of the Indus economic system. Weights made of chert or other stones have been found across sites, following a consistent binary progression in size. This standardization facilitated fair trade and the regulation of commerce. Goods traded included raw materials like metals and precious stones, as well as finished products such as beads, pottery, textiles, and possibly foodstuffs. Trade was likely conducted both locally between cities and villages, and over long distances reaching Mesopotamia and regions of Central Asia. The economic system of the Indus Civilization also included elements of storage and redistribution. Large granaries found at urban sites suggest centralized storage of surplus grain, possibly managed by local authorities or community groups. This storage would have been essential to support the urban population, especially in times of crop failure or drought. Markets or exchange centers within cities likely played a role in distributing goods, though specific archaeological evidence for marketplaces is limited. The spatial distribution of workshops and storage facilities implies organized trade and economic activity within urban contexts. The economic success of the Indus Civilization depended on its ability to produce surplus agricultural goods and manufactured items, enabling a division of labor and specialization. Farmers focused on crop production, while artisans and craftsmen produced goods for local use and trade. Merchants and traders facilitated the exchange of commodities both within the region and internationally. The reliance on a mixed economy of agriculture, craft production, and trade helped sustain the large urban populations and complex social structures of the Indus cities. This economic complexity is reflected in the archaeological record through diverse artifact assemblages, infrastructure for storage and distribution, and evidence of long-distance contacts. The integration of agriculture and trade was supported by transportation networks. Roads within and between cities allowed the movement of goods, while rivers and coastal waterways provided additional routes for transportation. Boats and ships used for maritime trade likely operated from port cities such as Lothal, which contained a dockyard capable of accommodating sea vessels. Environmental factors influenced economic activities. The fertile floodplains allowed for productive farming, but fluctuations in river courses and climate variability could disrupt agriculture and trade. Adaptations such as irrigation, water storage, and diversified production helped mitigate these challenges. The economic framework of the Indus Civilization demonstrates a level of planning and regulation that supported urban growth and social stability. While the absence of deciphered written records limits detailed understanding, material evidence illustrates a functioning economy with standardized systems and active trade networks. In summary, the economy of the Indus Valley Civilization was based on productive agriculture, skilled craft production, and extensive trade connections. These elements combined to sustain large urban populations and complex social systems. The use of standardized weights, organized workshops, and evidence of long-distance trade highlight the civilization's economic sophistication. This economic base contributed to the development and endurance of one of the world's earliest urban societies. The social structure, cultural practices, and religious beliefs of the Indus Valley Civilization constitute an integral part of understanding this ancient society. Archaeological evidence offers insights into how people lived, interacted, and organized their communities, while also revealing aspects of their spiritual life and cultural expressions. Though much remains uncertain due to the lack of deciphered written records, material remains allow for a detailed reconstruction of daily life, social organization, and religious symbolism. The society of the Indus Civilization appears to have been relatively egalitarian compared to contemporary ancient cultures. Unlike Mesopotamian or Egyptian societies, no clear evidence of royal palaces, monumental tombs, or exclusive elite residences has been found. The uniformity in housing size and quality across neighborhoods suggests a social organization where power may have been more evenly distributed or collective in nature. This absence of ostentatious displays of wealth or authority points to social mechanisms that emphasize communal or decentralized governance rather than monarchy or autocracy. Residential patterns reflect this social structure. Houses were generally similar in layout and construction, often centered around courtyards. The distribution of craft workshops within residential areas indicates an integration of work and domestic life, without rigid segregation of labor classes. The presence of wells and private bathrooms in many homes points to a standard of living that was relatively consistent across the urban population. The Indus people engaged in various crafts and trades, which likely influenced social roles and status. Skilled artisans specialized in beadmaking, pottery, metallurgy, and weaving, producing goods both for local consumption and for trade. Craft specialization suggests occupational differentiation, though without clear evidence of social stratification based on wealth or class. Cultural expressions are visible through artistic artifacts recovered from Indus sites. Small figurines made of terracotta and bronze depict humans and animals. These include female figures often interpreted as fertility symbols, indicating the possible importance of fertility in their worldview. Animal motifs appear on seals and pottery, including representations of bulls, elephants, and mythical creatures. Such imagery may have held symbolic or religious significance, though precise interpretations remain tentative due to the undeciphered script. Seals are among the most distinctive cultural artifacts of the Indus Civilization. Typically square or rectangular, these seals bear inscriptions in the Indus script alongside animal images. Their function is believed to be administrative, serving as markers of identity or authentication in trade and official transactions. The imagery on seals may also reflect mythological or religious beliefs, though the absence of definitive textual understanding limits conclusive interpretations. Religious practices in the Indus civilization are inferred primarily from material remains, as no temples or dedicated religious structures have been conclusively identified. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro is interpreted by some scholars as a facility for ritual cleansing or purification, suggesting that water held spiritual significance. The presence of platforms and small shrines may indicate places for communal or individual worship, though direct evidence is scarce. Iconography found on figurines and seals suggests reverence for natural elements and animals. The frequent depiction of a horned figure, sometimes interpreted as a Proto-Shiva or Pashupata-like deity, has been proposed but remains speculative due to the lack of corroborating textual evidence. The association of fertility symbols and animals may indicate a religious system centered on nature worship or animism. Burial practices provide further clues to social and religious life. Human remains have been found in both extended and flex positions, sometimes accompanied by grave goods such as pottery or beads. The variability in burial treatment suggests diversity in customs or beliefs regarding death and the afterlife. However, no clear hierarchical differentiation is observed in burial contexts, consistent with the overall egalitarian patterns seen in urban settlements. The integration of religion into daily life is evident in the widespread use of symbolic motifs on everyday objects. Pottery, jewelry, and tools often bear geometric patterns or animal symbols, indicating the cultural significance of these designs beyond mere decoration. These symbols likely conveyed meanings related to identity, protection, or spirituality. Language and writing also play a role in culture, though the Indus script remains undeciphered. The presence of inscriptions on seals, pottery, and tools suggests a system of communication used for administrative or ritual purposes. The brevity and repetition of symbols imply a complex but concise script, possibly encoding names, titles, or religious concepts. Festivals, communal gatherings, and other social rituals are not directly documented but are inferred from architectural and artifact evidence. Public structures such as assembly halls or platforms may have served as locations for social interaction, decision-making, or ceremonial events. The emphasis on water management and sanitation infrastructure also reflects communal efforts and shared responsibilities. The role of women in Indus society is difficult to determine definitively but can be glimpsed through figurines and burial analysis. Female figurines emphasize fertility and motherhood, suggesting these aspects were culturally important. The presence of personal adornments such as bangles and necklaces in graves implies that women participated in social and possibly ritual activities. Education and knowledge transmission likely occurred through apprenticeships and oral traditions. The complexity of crafts and standardized production indicates the passing of technical skills across generations. The undeciphered script may have played a role in record keeping or ritual instruction, though this remains speculative. The Indus Civilization's cultural achievements extend to urban aesthetics and environmental harmony. The consistent use of uniform bricks, organized street layouts, and public amenities indicates attention to urban beauty and functionality. This planning fostered social cohesion and facilitated the smooth operation of the cities. Interactions with neighboring cultures also influenced Indus social and cultural dynamics. Trade with Mesopotamia and Central Asia introduced foreign goods and ideas, which may have contributed to cultural exchange. However, the Indus civilization maintained distinctive artistic styles and social practices, reflecting a strong cultural identity. In conclusion, the society, culture, and religion of the Indus Valley civilization present a picture of a complex and organized community. The archaeological record reveals an egalitarian urban society with specialized crafts, symbolic art, and religious practices integrated into daily life. While many aspects remain enigmatic due to the undeciphered script and lack of monumental religious architecture, the material culture speaks to a civilization with rich cultural expressions and social cohesion. These features contribute significantly to understanding the character and legacy of the Indus people. Segment 6. The Indus script and language system during the mature phase of the Indus Valley civilization, between 2600 year BCE and 1900 year BCE, a standardized system of written symbols appears across settlements throughout the Indus region. This system is known in archaeological literature as the Indus script. Its presence is documented through inscriptions recovered from urban centers, secondary towns, and smaller settlements distributed across present-day Pakistan and northwest India. The earliest securely dated examples of the Indus script appear after the initial phase of urban consolidation. By 2600 year BCE, inscriptions are in regular use at major sites including Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, and Lothal. The script remains in use throughout the mature urban period and disappears from the archaeological record as large cities decline after 1900 year BCE. The geographic distribution of the script is extensive. Inscriptions have been identified across a region exceeding 1 million square kilometers. This distribution corresponds closely with the extent of Indus urban settlement and associated trade networks. The consistent appearance of the same signs across distant locations indicates a shared system rather than localized symbol traditions. Indus inscriptions are typically brief. Most consist of between 5 and 20 signs, with an average length of approximately 7 signs. No long texts, narrative inscriptions, or monumental writings have been identified. The absence of extended inscriptions distinguishes the Indus script from contemporary writing systems in Mesopotamia and Egypt. The script appears primarily on small objects. The most common medium is the square steatite seal. These seals usually carry a carved animal figure positioned above a short line of script. Inscriptions also appear on pottery, copper tablets, shell objects, terracotta tags, tools, and ornaments. The repetition of inscriptions on utilitarian and trade-related items indicates routine use rather than ceremonial display. The physical form of the script is standardized. Scholars have identified approximately 400 distinct signs, though fewer than 100 appear frequently. The signs include linear strokes, geometric shapes, composite forms, and stylized representations of objects. Sign size, proportions, and carving techniques remain consistent across sites. Most inscriptions are written from right to left. This directionality is indicated by the orientation of asymmetrical signs and by overlapping impressions on ceilings. Linearity and consistent spacing suggest a structured writing system rather than decorative iconography. Sign order within inscriptions follows recognizable patterns. Certain signs occur more frequently at the beginning of sequences, while others appear at the end. Some signs rarely occur in isolation. These positional regularities have been documented through statistical analysis of sign frequencies and sequences. Despite extensive study, the Indus script has not been deciphered. No bilingual or multilingual inscriptions have been discovered. No contemporary external texts reference the script in a way that permits direct comparison. As a result, the phonetic or semantic values of individual signs remain unknown. The classification of the script is based on structural properties rather than meaning. Some scholars describe it as logosyllabic, while others classify it as primarily logographic or as a mixed system. These classifications are derived from sign repetition, sequence length, and distribution patterns rather than deciphered readings. Several linguistic affiliations have been proposed in academic research. Some studies examine possible connections with early Dravidian languages based on geographic continuity. Other studies treat the script as representing a language family with no known descendants. These proposals remain unconfirmed and are not accepted as established readings. The function of the script can be inferred from archaeological context. Seals bearing inscriptions are frequently associated with workshops, storage areas, and trade goods. Many seals show signs of repeated use, indicating that they were pressed into soft materials such as clay. Seal impressions have been recovered from administrative contexts. Inscriptions on pottery and tools indicate that writing was not confined to restricted or monumental spaces. The recurrence of identical sign sequences across distant sites indicates shared conventions understood across the Indus cultural region. Animal imagery commonly appears alongside inscriptions on seals. Frequently depicted animals include cattle, elephants, rhinoceroses, water buffalo, and a distinctive horned animal represented in a standardized form. The relationship between the images and the accompanying script is not known. Their consistent pairing suggests coordinated symbolic use. Unlike contemporary civilizations, the Indus Valley civilization did not produce large public inscriptions bearing political titles, laws, or historical records. Writing is not attested on monuments, city gates, or large stone stelae. The script appears embedded within everyday administrative and economic practices. The brevity of inscriptions presents a major limitation for decipherment. Short texts provide limited opportunities to identify grammatical structure or recurring semantic patterns. Without longer sequences, it is not possible to isolate names, numerical values, or syntactic markers with certainty. Modern research has applied computational methods to the Indus script. Statistical modeling and pattern analysis have been used to test whether the sign sequences exhibit non-random structure. These studies consistently show ordered patterns consistent with structured writing systems. Computational analysis does not provide semantic interpretation. Pattern recognition identifies regularity but does not assign meaning without external reference. As a result, decipherment remains unresolved. The disappearance of the script coincides with the decline of large urban centers after 1900 year BCE. Later archaeological phases in the region do not continue the same writing tradition. No direct descendant script has been identified. This discontinuity limits historical reconstruction. Without readable texts, there is no internal written record of political organization, legal practices, or historical events. Archaeological evidence provides information on settlement layout, material culture, and production systems, but written testimony remains inaccessible. Ongoing excavations continue to yield inscribed objects. Sites such as Dolavira have produced inscriptions carved into stone surfaces, expanding the range of known writing contexts. Each discovery contributes additional data for comparative analysis. Preservation of inscribed artifacts remains a priority. Many inscriptions are carved on materials susceptible to erosion. Conservation efforts focus on stabilization and digital documentation to ensure long-term study. The Indus script represents an independent development of writing. Its form and structure differ from Mesopotamian cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphs. Its standardized appearance across a large geographic area indicates coordinated use during the mature phase of the civilization. As of the current state of research, no decipherment has achieved scholarly consensus. The script remains unread. Its structure, distribution, and material contexts are well documented, but its linguistic content is unknown. The Indus script remains a central component of the archaeological record of the Indus Valley civilization. It reflects systematic administrative practices during the period of urban maturity between 2600 year BCE and 1900 year BCE. Its undeciphered status continues to define the limits of historical knowledge for this civilization. Have you ever wondered what life was like over 4,000 years ago? We often picture ancient times as primitive, but what if I told you about a civilization so advanced, so organized, that it rivals some modern cities? Today, we are diving deep into the mysterious and brilliant world of the Indus Valley civilization, one of the most fascinating societies in human history. We'll uncover the incredible technological innovations and the mind-blowing standardization that made them true masters of their time. Forget everything you thought you knew about the ancient world, because what we're about to explore will completely change your perspective. The Indus Valley civilization, flourishing around 2500 BCE, stretched across what is now modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. This wasn't just a scattered collection of villages. It was a sprawling, sophisticated network of cities, towns, and settlements. The most famous of these are Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, urban centers that showcase a level of planning that is simply astonishing for their era. Think about it. While many parts of the world were still figuring out basic farming, the people of the Indus Valley were building meticulously planned cities on a grid system. Streets ran in straight lines, intersecting at perfect right angles. This wasn't accidental. It was the result of deliberate, sophisticated urban planning, a concept we take for granted today but was revolutionary back then. But what really sets them apart is their incredible engineering, especially when it came to water. In a world without modern plumbing, the Indus people created one of the most advanced sanitation systems of the ancient world. Nearly every house in Mohenjo-daro had its own private bathroom with a toilet connected to a covered drainage network. These drains, made of baked bricks, ran underneath the main streets and were equipped with manholes for maintenance. They even had public and private wells to ensure a clean water supply. This focus on hygiene and public health was unparalleled. It suggests a society that deeply understood the importance of sanitation, something that many European cities wouldn't figure out for thousands of years. Let's talk about their craftsmanship, because this is where their obsession with standardization really shines. Archaeologists have unearthed a stunning array of artifacts: pottery, seals, beads, and tools. What's remarkable is the uniformity. The bricks they used for construction, for example, were not just random mud clumps. They were standardized, fired bricks with a precise length-to-width-to-height ratio of 4:2:1. This standard was consistent across hundreds of miles, from Harappa to Mohenjo-daro and beyond. Imagine the level of communication and centralized control required to enforce such a standard. It's like an ancient version of an ISO certification. This uniformity wasn't just for show. It made construction faster, more efficient, and incredibly durable, which is why we can still see the foundations of their buildings today. This standardization extended to their system of weights and measures. Excavations have revealed a series of carefully crafted weights, typically cubical and made of a hard stone called chert. These weights followed a precise binary and decimal system. The smallest weight was about 0.85 grams, and the larger weights were multiples of this base unit, doubling in size up to a certain point and then increasing in a decimal pattern. This system was used for trade and taxation, ensuring fairness and consistency across the entire civilization. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a rough barter system. It was a highly regulated economy built on a foundation of mathematical precision. It allowed for complex trade networks to flourish, connecting the Indus Valley with distant lands like Mesopotamia. One of the most iconic and mysterious artifacts from the Indus Valley is the soapstone seal. Thousands of these small, intricately carved seals have been found, each bearing animal motifs like bulls, elephants, and rhinos, alongside a script that we still haven't deciphered. Yes, you heard that right. Their writing system remains one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. But the seals themselves tell a story of technological mastery. The carvings are so detailed and precise that they must have been made with incredibly fine tools. These seals were likely used for trade, stamped onto clay tags to mark ownership of goods. This is essentially ancient branding and quality control, a way to say, this product comes from me, and it meets a certain standard. Their technological prowess didn't stop at construction and trade. The Indus people were skilled metallurgists. They worked with copper, bronze, lead, and tin. They developed techniques like smelting, casting, and forging to create a variety of objects, from tools and weapons to beautiful sculptures. The famous dancing girl statue, a small bronze figurine found at Mohenjo-daro, is a testament to their artistic and technical skill. It was created using the lost wax casting technique, a complex process that shows a deep understanding of metallurgy. They also created intricate jewelry from gold, silver, and semi-precious stones like carnelian and lapis lazuli, showcasing advanced drilling techniques to create tiny, perfect beads. So, what does all this mean? The technological innovations and standardization of the Indus Valley civilization paint a picture of a society that was highly organized, peaceful, and prosperous. The lack of grand palaces, royal tombs, or extensive fortifications suggests a more egalitarian society, perhaps governed by a council of elites or priests rather than a single powerful king. Their focus wasn't on building massive monuments to glorify rulers, but on creating comfortable, clean, and efficient cities for their people. They prioritized public works, trade, and craftsmanship. It was a civilization built on practicality and precision. The eventual decline of this incredible civilization around 1900 BCE is another great mystery. Theories range from climate change that altered river patterns, to invasion, to a breakdown of trade networks. Whatever the cause, their legacy was buried under layers of earth for thousands of years, only to be rediscovered in the 1920s. And what we've uncovered so far is just the tip of the iceberg. The undeciphered script holds the key to understanding their beliefs, their government, and their daily lives in their own words. Cracking that code could rewrite history as we know it. The Indus Valley civilization challenges our assumptions about the ancient world. It shows us that innovation, urban planning, and a commitment to standards are not just modern concepts. They are timeless principles that have driven human progress for millennia. This was a civilization that, in many ways, was far ahead of its time, leaving behind a legacy of brilliant engineering and mysterious elegance. It's a powerful reminder that there are still so many secrets hidden in our past, waiting to be discovered. Segment 8, Decline and Transformation. After 1900 BCE, after approximately 1900 BCE, material patterns across the Indus Valley region began to change in ways that are measurable and uneven. These developments did not occur simultaneously across all settlements, and they did not follow a single sequence. Archaeological layers from this period record gradual adjustments in urban form, material production, and settlement distribution rather than abrupt breaks in occupation. Large urban centers such as Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Dolavira display evidence of altered maintenance practices. Brick construction continued, but sun-dried bricks increasingly replaced the previously dominant baked bricks. Wall thicknesses and standardized proportions became less consistent. In some locations, earlier drainage systems remained functional, while in others they were partially filled or no longer maintained. Street layouts in several cities show the presence of smaller structures built into former thoroughfares. Open areas that had previously functioned as public spaces were subdivided for domestic or workshop use. These changes are observable through spatial analysis of built environments, without providing evidence for underlying causes. Craft production continued, though with identifiable shifts. Fine seal carving, previously widespread and standardized, declined in frequency. Seals from later layers show reduced iconographic consistency and simpler motifs. The use of standardized weights became less common, with fewer examples recovered from late occupational contexts. At the same time, certain forms of bead production and pottery manufacture persisted, particularly in regional centers. Pottery styles diversified during this period. Earlier uniform red ware with black geometric designs gave way to locally produced ceramics showing greater variation in form and decoration. These changes are documented stratigraphically and are commonly used to distinguish earlier and later phases of occupation. Metallurgical evidence indicates continued use of copper and bronze, although large-scale production appears reduced in several regions. Tools and ornaments recovered from late contexts display variation in alloy composition and workmanship. No single pattern of metallurgical change is observed across the entire region. Settlement distribution shifted after 1900 BCE. Large urban centers experienced population reduction, while smaller settlements and villages increased in number, particularly in eastern Punjab, Haryana, and the upper Ganges, Yamuna interfluve. This pattern is documented through regional surveys showing a higher density of small habitation sites relative to large planned cities. In many cases, populations appear to have relocated rather than disappeared. Archaeological continuity is visible in house forms, subsistence tools, and ceramic traditions that develop over time rather than ending abruptly. These records document reorganization of habitation rather than regional abandonment. Environmental data provide contextual information for these developments without establishing direct causation. Paleoclimate studies record changes in monsoon patterns during the late 3rd and early 2nd millennium BCE. Fluvial evidence shows shifts in river courses, including reduced flow in some channels previously associated with Indus settlements. These findings are derived from sediment analysis and remote sensing. The Gaga-Hakra river system, which had supported numerous settlements, shows evidence of declining water availability over time. Settlement density along the system decreased after 1900 BCE, while sites located near more stable water sources remained occupied longer. These patterns are spatially and temporally correlated but do not independently explain social change. Agricultural practices also reflect adjustment. Archaeobotanical remains from later sites show increased use of drought-tolerant crops such as millets, alongside continued cultivation of wheat and barley. Crop assemblages vary by region, documenting localized agricultural strategies. Long-distance trade networks linking Indus cities with regions such as Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and the Persian Gulf show evidence of contraction. Imported materials, including lapis lazuli and marine shells from distant coasts, appear less frequently in late contexts. Regional exchange networks, however, continue to operate among neighboring settlements. References to trade with the Indus region in Mesopotamian records become less frequent after the early 2nd millennium BCE. Archaeological data from South Asia align with this reduction in long-distance exchange, while indicating the persistence of local trade systems. Writing systems associated with the Indus Civilization also declined in material presence. Inscribed seals and tablets become increasingly rare in later layers. No extended inscriptions from this period are known, and the symbolic system does not show evidence of expansion into new formats. This reduction is documented through artifact frequency rather than interpretive reconstruction. Mortuary evidence from this period is limited and regionally varied. Cemeteries associated with late Harappan phases display differences in burial forms and grave goods compared to earlier contexts. These variations are archaeologically recorded without supporting uniform conclusions about belief systems or social organization. In some regions, including Gujarat, settlements such as Lothal remained occupied longer than many northern cities. Architectural remains show continued use of warehouses and dock facilities into later phases, with modifications. This pattern reflects regional variation in the timing and character of transformation. By approximately 1600 BCE, the large-scale urban features characteristic of the mature Harappan phase were no longer dominant. Settlement patterns favored dispersed rural communities and smaller towns. Material culture from this period is classified as late Harappan, defined by regional diversity rather than standardized forms. Technological knowledge did not disappear during this transition. Brickmaking, metalworking, pottery production, and agricultural practices continued in modified forms. Elements of Indus material culture appear within later archaeological traditions of northern and western South Asia, without accompanying textual continuity. No archaeological evidence supports a sudden or violent end to the Indus civilization. Destruction layers, mass burials, and widespread weapon deposits are not characteristic of this phase. Stratigraphic records instead document gradual change extending over several centuries. The period after 1900 BCE records a shift in settlement organization, production systems, and exchange patterns. Urban centralization decreased, while regional variation increased. These outcomes are documented through settlement surveys, artifact distributions, and environmental records. Archaeology records the material processes and outcomes of this phase without identifying singular causes or assigning intent. The reduction of large urban centers alongside the persistence of rural and regional traditions defines the observable pattern. By the early 2nd millennium BCE, the Indus Valley region no longer displayed the integrated urban system seen in earlier centuries. Human occupation, however, remained continuous, adapting through altered settlement strategies and material practices. This phase represents a transition rather than a termination. The Indus civilization, defined by urban uniformity and standardized systems, ceased to exist, while populations and technologies continued within changing cultural landscapes. Have you ever heard of a civilization so advanced that it had urban planning and sanitation systems 4,500 years ago? A society that flourished for centuries, spanning 1 million square kilometers, only to vanish from history, leaving behind ghost cities and an undeciphered script? Today, we are diving deep into the mystery of the Indus Valley civilization, one of the world's first great urban cultures, and exploring how its legacy continues to shape our world. Our story begins not in antiquity, but in the 19th century, during the British colonial era in India. Engineers laying railway tracks stumbled upon vast quantities of old, finely made bricks. They saw them as convenient ballast for their tracks, unknowingly dismantling the ruins of an ancient city. It wasn't until the 1920s that archaeologists like John Marshall realized what they had found. This wasn't just a pile of old bricks. It was the remains of a civilization as old as ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. They named it the Indus Valley Civilization, after the great river that nurtured it. The initial excavations at sites like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were world-changing. They revealed cities built on precise grid patterns, with houses made of uniform, baked bricks. These weren't haphazard settlements. They were master-planned metropolises. Imagine this. While many parts of the world were still in the early stages of settlement, the people of the Indus Valley were living in 2-story houses with private bathrooms and a sophisticated, city-wide drainage system. Tunnels and covered drains ran beneath the streets, carrying wastewater away from homes. This level of public sanitation wouldn't be seen again in many parts of the world for thousands of years. But who were these people? We call them Harappans, after the first city discovered, but we don't know what they called themselves. Their writing, a beautiful script of symbols found on small stone seals, remains one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. Scholars have spent decades trying to crack the code, but without a bilingual text like the Rosetta Stone, the language of the Indus people remained silent. These seals, often depicting animals like bulls, elephants, and a mythical unicorn-like creature, are masterpieces of miniature art. They were likely used for trade, stamping clay tags on goods to mark ownership. And trade they did. Indus seals and artifacts have been found as far away as Mesopotamia, in modern-day Iraq. This tells us they were part of a vast international trade network, exchanging goods like cotton, timber, and precious stones. They were skilled craftspeople, creating intricate beadwork, elegant pottery, and delicate metalwork in bronze and copper. Astonishingly, despite their advanced society, we found very little evidence of large-scale warfare. There are no grand palaces for kings, no monumental temples for powerful priests, and very few weapons. The cities seem remarkably egalitarian and peaceful compared to their contemporaries. This has led some to call it a utopian society, governed perhaps by a council of merchants or elders rather than a single absolute ruler. But around 1900 BCE, something changed. The great cities began to decline. The once thriving urban centers were gradually abandoned. For centuries, the reason was a complete mystery. Early theories suggested a massive invasion, but archaeological evidence doesn't support widespread conflict. So, what happened? Modern science has given us new clues. Studies of ancient climate data suggest a major shift. The monsoons, which had reliably watered the Indus River system, may have weakened or shifted. This could have led to prolonged drought, making large-scale agriculture impossible. The rivers that were the lifeblood of the civilization may have changed course or dried up, forcing people to abandon their cities in search of water and more fertile land. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but a gradual unraveling as people moved to smaller, more rural settlements. For nearly 4,000 years, the civilization was largely forgotten, its cities buried under layers of earth. But its legacy never truly disappeared. After the decline of the cities, many cultural elements of the Indus Valley people seem to have lived on, absorbed into the later cultures of the Indian subcontinent. Some scholars believe that early forms of Hinduism may have roots in Indus traditions. The focus on ritual bathing, suggested by the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro, and the reverence for certain animals and symbols, like the bull and the pipal tree, resonate with later Indian religious practices. Even the yoga-like posture of a figure on one of the seals, often called the Proto-Shiva, hints at spiritual practices that would become central to Indian philosophy. The modern rediscovery of the Indus Valley has had a profound impact. It pushed back the timeline of Indian history by thousands of years and revealed a sophisticated, indigenous urban civilization. For a newly independent India in the 20th century, this discovery was a source of immense national pride. It challenged the colonial narrative that civilization was brought to the subcontinent from outside. It proved that a highly advanced, peaceful, and innovative society had flourished there in deep antiquity. Today, archaeologists continue to uncover new secrets. Using satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and advanced genetic studies, researchers are piecing together a more complete picture. They've identified hundreds of smaller settlements and are even analyzing ancient DNA from skeletal remains to understand the genetic makeup of the people and their connections to modern populations. Each new find adds another piece to the puzzle. What was the purpose of the Great Bath? What did their symbols mean? Will we ever decipher their script? The Indus Valley civilization is a powerful reminder that history is not a simple, linear story. It's a complex tapestry of rise and fall, of brilliant achievements and mysterious declines. It shows us that there are many ways to build a society, and that even the most powerful civilizations are ultimately dependent on their environment. The story of its loss and rediscovery is a detective story on a grand scale, a quest to understand a lost world that still has so much to teach us about urban living, trade, peace, and resilience. The silent cities of the Indus may yet speak again. Segment 10. Legacy and modern rediscovery. The rediscovery of the Indus Valley civilization represents one of the most significant developments in the study of ancient societies. For centuries, the knowledge of this civilization had been lost to the modern world, buried beneath layers of earth and time. It was not until the early 20th century that systematic archaeological work began to bring its urban landscapes and material culture back into view. The process of rediscovery began in the 1920s in the regions now comprising Pakistan and northwest India. Local inhabitants frequently encountered artifacts such as pottery fragments, beads, and bricks during agricultural activities and construction work. These findings piqued the curiosity of British colonial officials and scholars, prompting formal archaeological investigations. The first major site to be extensively excavated was Harappa, located in the Punjab region. Excavations conducted by the Archaeological Survey of India under the direction of Daya Ram Soni in 1921 revealed extensive urban ruins characterized by uniform baked bricks, organized street grids, and advanced drainage systems. The scale and sophistication of the settlement were unexpected. Shortly thereafter, attention shifted to Mohenjo-daro, situated further south near the Indus River. Excavations led by John Marshall beginning in 1924 confirmed similar patterns of urban planning and material culture, solidifying the recognition of a previously unknown ancient civilization. These discoveries challenged the existing framework of ancient history in South Asia, which had largely focused on the Vedic period and classical Indian culture. The Indus sites demonstrated that complex urbanization and social organization had existed in the region as early as the mid-3rd millennium BCE, predating many known developments in the subcontinent. Systematic excavation techniques included stratigraphic digging, careful recording of artifact provenance, and detailed mapping of architectural remains. Archaeologists uncovered a wide array of material culture: pottery, stone tools, copper and bronze implements, ornaments made of precious and semi-precious stones, and thousands of inscribed seals. These seals bore a script composed of symbols still undeciphered despite extensive efforts, making the Indus script one of the longest-standing enigmas in epigraphy. The absence of monumental palaces or large religious structures differentiated the Indus civilization from contemporaneous societies, such as those in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Instead, the built environment emphasized functional urban design with residential and public buildings organized into distinct sectors. The grid-like city layouts included broad streets intersected by narrower lanes, and the drainage infrastructure was remarkably advanced for the period. As archaeological research progressed, scholars integrated interdisciplinary methods to better understand the civilization's environmental and economic context. Paleo-environmental studies, including sedimentology and pollen analysis, provided data on climate conditions and vegetation patterns during the 3rd and 2nd millennia BCE. These studies revealed fluctuations in monsoon intensity and river dynamics that likely influenced settlement patterns and agricultural productivity. Zooarchaeological analyses of animal bones and archaeobotanical examination of plant remains shed light on diet, domestication, and farming practices. Evidence indicated the cultivation of wheat, barley, pulses, and later millets, alongside the domestication of cattle, sheep, goats, and water buffalo. This mixed agricultural economy supported the urban populations and facilitated trade. Technological advances in metallurgy were evident through the recovery of copper, bronze, and lead artifacts, including tools, weapons, and ornaments. The quality and variety of metalwork demonstrated skilled craftsmanship, although the scale of production appeared more localized than in some neighboring regions. Remote sensing technologies, introduced in the late 20th century, enhanced site identification and landscape analysis. Satellite imagery and aerial photography revealed the extensive network of settlements beyond the major urban centers, highlighting regional variation and connectivity within the civilization sphere. The geopolitical changes following the partition of British India in 1947 influenced archaeological activities. Key sites like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro fell within Pakistan, while important peripheral sites remained in India. Political boundaries affected the coordination of research and conservation efforts, though scholars on both sides continue to contribute to the understanding of the Indus civilization. In recent decades, excavations at lesser-known sites such as Dholavira in Gujarat and Rakhigarhi in Haryana have expanded the geographical scope of study. These sites display unique architectural elements and material assemblages, indicating localized adaptations and diverse social practices within the broader cultural horizon. The continued lack of decipherment of the Indus script remains a central challenge. Without textual records to clarify political structures, religious beliefs, or language, interpretations rely heavily on material culture and contextual analysis. The absence of monumental inscriptions or royal iconography suggests a social organization differing from centralized monarchies common in other early civilizations. Indus material culture has exerted a lasting influence on the cultural heritage of South Asia. Artifacts recovered from archaeological sites are displayed in museums across India, Pakistan, and internationally, serving as educational resources and symbols of ancient achievement. Public outreach programs, including exhibitions, documentaries, and digital media, have increased public awareness and interest. Contemporary research continues to refine understanding of Indus society through advanced scientific methods. Techniques such as radiocarbon dating, stable isotope analysis, and ancient DNA studies contribute new data on chronology, population movement, and subsistence strategies. The legacy of the Indus civilization is also relevant to debates on urbanism, state formation, and social complexity. Its distinctive features, such as standardized weights and measures, widespread urban planning, and craft specialization, offer comparative insights within global archaeology. Overall, the rediscovery and study of the Indus Valley civilization illustrate the dynamic nature of archaeological inquiry. The integration of multidisciplinary approaches and international collaboration continues to shed light on one of the world's earliest urban cultures, while acknowledging the limits of current knowledge and the potential for future discoveries. The Indus Civilization, often referred to as the Harappan civilization, left a significant mark on the archaeological record of South Asia. After its transformation and decentralization beginning around 1900 BCE, many aspects of its material culture and technological achievements continued to influence subsequent societies in the region. Modern understanding of this civilization has been shaped largely by archaeological discoveries dating from the 19th century onward, revealing early urbanism outside the more familiar centers of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Interest in the remains of the Indus civilization began during British colonial rule in the Indian subcontinent, when large ancient mounds and artifacts near Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were first noted in the early 1800s. These sites, located in present-day Pakistan, showed extensive brick structures, pottery, and inscribed seals, although the full importance of these discoveries was not immediately clear. Systematic archaeological excavations began in the early 20th century under John Marshall, the Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. Between 1921 and 1931, his teams uncovered the remains of large urban centers with planned layouts, standardized bricks, and sophisticated drainage systems. The seals, bearing an undeciphered script, highlighted a complex symbolic system. These excavations confirmed the existence of a well-developed urban culture contemporary with ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, yet unique in its geographic spread and cultural traits. The term Indus Valley Civilization was adopted to describe this society based on its concentration in the Indus River basin. Urban centers within the civilization exhibited grid-like street patterns and housing constructed from standardized baked bricks, often rising to multiple stories. Drainage networks included covered street drains and private sewage disposal systems within homes. Artifacts uncovered included a variety of pottery styles, metal tools, ornaments, and seals featuring animal motifs alongside geometric patterns. Evidence of metalworking demonstrated the use of copper, bronze, and gold. Specialized crafts such as beadmaking and shell-working suggest organized production and trade. Agriculture formed the economic backbone of the civilization, supported by irrigation methods. Trade networks connected the Indus cities with Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and the Persian Gulf. The discovery of standardized weights and measures points to an advanced commercial and administrative system. By around 1900 BCE, many urban centers began to experience changes marking the onset of decline. Archaeological evidence indicates gradual transformation rather than abrupt collapse. Urban planning became less uniform, craft specialization diminished, and the use of the Indus script declined until it disappeared. Environmental studies show shifts in river courses and climate, including monsoon variability, factors likely influencing agricultural productivity and settlement viability. Populations dispersed into smaller rural communities, particularly in areas less reliant on major river systems. Despite these changes, technological knowledge persisted. Pottery production, metallurgy, and brickmaking continued in later regional cultures that display significant diversity but retain elements inherited from the Indus tradition. The rediscovery of this civilization reshaped historical perspectives on early urban societies in Asia. Archaeological work has extended understanding of its geographic reach, including sites in present-day India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Excavations at Dholavira, Lothal, and Kalibangan reveal regional variations that add complexity to interpretations of its social and economic organization. Recent advances such as remote sensing and GIS mapping allow for broader analysis of settlement patterns and trade networks. Efforts to decipher the Indus script have yet to yield conclusive results, limiting detailed insight into the political and social structures of the civilization. However, the continuity of material culture points to enduring cultural traditions. The legacy of the Indus civilization is visible in the urban planning concepts, craft techniques, and agricultural practices that influence subsequent cultures in South Asia. While the script remains undeciphered, archaeological evidence shows continuity in settlement and material traditions, suggesting cultural persistence despite changes. Later Vedic and post-Vedic societies developed within these evolving landscapes. In modern times, the Indus civilization serves as a shared ancient heritage for both India and Pakistan. Its study continues to provide critical insights into early urbanization, economic systems, and human adaptation to environmental change. This civilization remains one of the earliest known urban cultures, notable for its extensive cities, standardized production, and complex trade. Archaeological discoveries have revealed much about its characteristics, development, and gradual transformation. Ongoing research aims to clarify unresolved questions regarding social structure, political organization, and symbolic systems. Though the Indus Civilization as an integrated urban system ceased by the early 2nd millennium BCE, its populations and many technological practices persisted within new cultural contexts. This enduring influence underscores its significance in the broader history of human societies. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our past. And let me know in the comments what you think happened to the Indus Valley people. I'd love to hear your theories. See you next time.